Gardenia, happy Thursday. We made it. Thank you for sticking with us, getting started a little late this morning. We got a great show with co-host, team captain, Stephen McClure on duty today. And, of course, executive producer Jim Freedom on the boards. We got a little international news block. We got Russian trolls. Hey, the title for today's show, was what is it? Now I got to reference back to my notes. President Kamala, Russian trolls, and suicide. Unfortunately, those are not one story. Those are three distinct stories, but there is a lot of overlap. There is a lot of interconnected issues at play here. We have Stephen joining us today. We're going to be talking about, we have a couple COVID. COVID is no longer contained on Adam versus the Man. It is out of the box. We have misleading medical advice throughout the show to ensure that we get censored. We've got a great video that I think might be a few days old, but I hadn't seen this until yesterday. We have Presidents Clinton, Bush, and Obama teaming up to push the vaccine. But before we get to that, let's get producer Jim up here for producer notes this morning. Jim, how you doing, brother? Is the smoke weed every day button ready? This is one thing I want it's got to be ready for Fina tomorrow.
But hopefully by tomorrow it'll be ready. But I ain't ready with shit today. I'm slacking today. CJ might have been better off taking over for me. You sent me this video, or CJ sent it. I have it in Telegram. I thought I downloaded it. I'm trying to make sure to be ready with it. I woke up a little late this morning, just so everybody knows. That's why I'm all out of it, discombobulated, and now I'm trying to make sure everything's set up while we're doing the beginning.
Are you one of those people that needs your coffee to soak in the morning before your brain works?
Well, interestingly enough, I don't drink coffee at all. I don't. It's really weird with coffee. I absolutely love the smell of coffee, but I can't stand the taste. Go figure.
It's probably because you have COVID. I hear that's
been like this my whole life before COVID.
You were born with COVID. You're
evil minds.
Wait, maybe you're patient zero, and it's affecting your memory too.
Every cell in my body is COVID.
Well, you want to warm up with the promos here while I smoke this bowl?
Okay, sure, yeah, definitely. Check out adamversusman.com. First, check out our public Telegram channel. You can get some insight into what's really going on in our lives. You can tell when before the show even starts, you can see everybody freaking out. Where's Jim? Why hasn't Jim said anything? Da, 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 da. You can see all that happening live before the show even goes live. So it's definitely fun to be in the know. So check that out. That was our public Telegram, t.me/Adam versus Man. If you want to join our private Telegram, you can visit the website you see at the bottom of the screen, adamversusman.com. It looks like this. You can click the Patreon button, and it'll take you to the page where it'll show you the different levels of ways you can support the show. $10 a month is where it's at. That's going to get you access into the Producers Club that I mentioned, the Private Producers Club. So definitely check that out. Once you're done with that, you can go back to the website because it has everything. Click on the button that says Cigar Federation. That's our affiliate program. You can check out their website. Use promo code ADAM10. Adam10 gets you 10% off of your entire order on any of the exotically flavored cigars of your choosing. So definitely check that out and help us out that way. Oh, I forgot to pull up the Instagram. But by now, if you're on Instagram, you should be following at the Garden of Freedom to keep up with Adam and Gardenia, everything that's going on up there.
I'm really behind on that now. I'm excited. Today, we got some friends coming over. We're slapping up drywall in the new cabin. I'm really excited about this, feeling this project coming together. But let's go ahead and get our co-host, Stephen, co-host team captain and Homefront Battle Buddies executive director, Stephen McClure, is with us today.
Stephen. He just, there he goes.
A man.
See, that's why there's a problem with too many people bouncing in and out of the backstage.
Fuck you.
No, Stephen's pranking you.
That was not
messing with the controls. So we do have some heavy topics to get to first, but this video is getting circulated still, so it's relatively current. I didn't even bother to check, but this is Presidents Clinton, Bush the second, and Obama telling you why you need to get the vaccine. And if that's not the ultimate case for why you shouldn't get the vaccine, I don't know what is. Maybe that only applies for people who are woke like us, about if these three people are advocating the same thing, it must be really evil. They agree on war. They agree on the banking and corporate system that runs this country. They agree on the police state, the surveillance state. They agree on gun control. They agree on taking away your rights. They agree on authoritarianism, central control, central planning. And when they come together to say something like this, take heed.
No.
Well,
Away from my shit.
There were other women besides Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, so I mean, if Hillary, the only thing that would make it scarier is if Bill was there holding Hillary. But actually, Stephen, in one of our blocks before this, I'm going to tease this ahead just a little bit. Kamala Harris, a whole discussion with Bill Clinton on empowering women and girls, igniting criticism. Yeah, Bill Clinton. So, I mean, this kind of relates to the video that we're about to watch. Maybe I should have put these in order today to cover them together. But Bill Clinton has had an interesting time managing his reputation since becoming president. I mean, up till there, he was, good enough to become president, right? Since then, Lewinsky scandal, the rape accusations, and in this story, what's coming up is the Juanita Broderick story. But it seems like now Kamala Harris is, basically going out on a limb for Bill Clinton's reputation. And I don't know, like, what the end goal of this is. Do they have access to some life extension technology that we don't know about? Like, are Hillary and Bill planning on running again? Like, is that it? Like, after this, like, is Hillary still trying to be president?
Yeah. So you don't have a top security clearance, I guess, but I do. So if you ever become president, after the inauguration, they're going to take you into a back room and there's going to be a baby. You're going to stab the baby, drink its blood, and join the Illuminati. And from there, you never die. Ho, 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 ho.
No, the Bill Hicks model of the presidency, right? He says that when you get elected, they put you in a dark room full of cigar smoke and a little projector comes down and they show you a shot of the Kennedy assassination from an angle you've never seen before. And then the lights come up and they say, any questions? And the only one you're allowed to ask is, what's my agenda? And I think that's a little more accurate than the Illuminati baby blood. That seems like there'd be an unnecessary liability with that.
Speaking of cigar smoke, this is a stolen throne, call to arms. Do you know where I got it at? The Cigar Federation.
All right. Beautiful. I'm glad you're enjoying that.
And I used a discount code.
It's good enough weather. Like, we need to get back to cigars and sunsets, I think.
Speaking of weather, I want to apologize to the audience just in case. We're in one of the biggest storms that I've seen in my entire life. So if my internet goes out, sorry.
All right, Jim, do you have this video ready to play? No. Do we have the Clinton Bush Obama video ready to roll? Anybody?
Americans.
There we go.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans.
And soon, they will be available to everyone.
The science is clear. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
They could save your life.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
Did that play okay for everybody? It was kind of funky on my end.
I mean, it scared the shit out of me. So.
Well, there's that. But did it play smooth enough? Well, it was pretty glitchy for me. Was it smooth enough?
It was smooth for me, but why do they all play members of the mafia?
All right. Well, maybe it was just my connection, but the smirk on Bush's face there in the middle. Like, did you notice that? Did you catch that when there's the shot from the side with Clinton talking, and Bush makes a lot of like weird little smirks like that. But you think about the contrast of Bush's reputation since leaving office. Very quiet, right? I mean, Bush was a lot more hated when he left office, right? For the global
And
war
now he paints pictures of the guys that died under his command, or as I call it, guys that he sacrificed.
Is that part of what he's painting now too? Because like that's all I know about him is like he was like that's all I really know of his post presidency life is that he does weird little PSAs like this for COVID and occasionally does like public wave appearance events, and he's not even really active with the GOP or anything else in politics. Like we just hear that he paints and
So
paints like really weird, awkward shit that I almost wonder if he's got someone doing that for him and staging this like minimalist public life, and he's got something else entirely going on where he's pulling strings behind the scenes or something.
So I'm a pretty historical person, and I read a lot of books about post presidencies. I like the autobiographies. Bush's biography was written not by him, but by a person who was in the White House for all 8 years. They held different positions. They started out pretty low. When he left, they were pretty high. And then the only book that I know that he's written is it's he's got a series of books, and it's the left side is a portrait of a guy that he supposedly painted the picture, and then the right side is the picture that was taken of them that he painted, and it's facts about them. And if nothing else, it should make us realize that these aren't soldiers that are dying overseas. These are fucking people. Like, I don't think that people understand that. It's like, it's not American soldiers killing Afghan soldiers. It's fathers killing other fathers. It's sons killing other sons. It's brothers killing other brothers. And that's kind of fucked up. But, I mean, do you want him to be more vocal? I wish that every president would just leave office and shut the fuck up.
I mean, does it matter? I mean, I guess, yeah, we because they're never like coming out and going and review, like have any president, okay, so like Smedley Butler, right, came out, wrote War is a Racket, refused to be a part of a coup against what he thought was the legitimate government then, and sort of exposed the system from the inside. And he might be the most senior government official to have ever fully done that, right? Have any past presidents in any meaningful way? I mean, JFK is the only one we think of as like challenge, because he challenged he issued a silverback note, right? He issued a silverback currency and was challenging the power of the Federal Reserve System and in some ways the military-industrial complex and the existing power structure as a whole. But is there anybody we can say a sort of higher ranking in government than Smedley Butler? And he wasn't that high ranking. He wasn't commandant. I don't think he was. He was a major general, which is only a 2-star, right?
A lot of people major's 2-star. A lot of people don't know this, but Sam Adams, one of our founding fathers, was ostracized and basically forced into a position where he had to pay people to go to town for him. So, real quickly, I'm going to mention it because it's fucking kick-ass. You have Smedley Butler. I have John Paul Jones, the first admiral of the Navy. John Paul Jones, founder of the Navy. Navy's created in 1775. Marine Corps was subsequently then created. So at the time, it was Army flag, Navy flag, Marine Corps flag. Now it's Army flag, Marine Corps flag, Navy flag. And a lot of people don't know this. The Master at Arms is in control of the Capitol building security-wise. It's why the Master at Arms introduces the president at what's that thing called? The State of the Union, all this other shit. John Paul Jones and Sam Adams confronted a congressman in Congress. The congressman essentially said that he was going to take John Paul Jones's sword, which is to say, I'm going to take your commission. And as it was written in the congressional diaries then, John Paul Jones keistered the congressman, meaning he beat the fuck out of him in Congress. He was then wrestled to the ground by the Master at Arms and his little group of people. The Navy was decommissioned for like 6 days. And that is why the Navy flag comes after the Marine Corps flag, because we have two birthdays. 10/13, 1775, and then like June 9th, 1781 or something. Yeah, you threatened to beat a sailor's ass. You better be ready, bitch. Take my sword. Take my sword.
Okay. Calm down there, sailor.
Sam Adams was ostracized by the Congress because they wanted to do some shit, and he basically told some congressman from Delaware, go figure, to pick up gun and go with troops. And when he didn't, he basically called the congressman the equivalent of a pussy and a warmonger. So there's that. We don't really talk about that, and that's interesting because we have those three characters, right? Smedley Butler, every Marine that I know knows that he won like two Medals of Honor. He's the highest rank. He's the highest decorated.
Second most decorated Marine in military history.
Oh, he's the second.
Yeah.
But then, like, you learned that in boot camp, right?
Yeah.
Do they also hand you a copy of War as a Racket?
Of course not.
I think in Navy boot camp, they should hand you, like, a picture of, like, John Paul Jones kicking the shit out of somebody in the halls of Congress. And, don't take my sword should be, like, our, like, fuck Hua. And from now on, it's don't take my sword.
Yeah, but see, now you're reinforcing militarism. I hate to be so like broad and imprecise with this, but the appreciation of history is very important here. So when we look at this video of Clinton, Bush, Obama, you go, well, what are these guys doing with their lives? Like, have they with the power that they have? Someone is part of the deal is you shut up or you die, right? I mean, if any one of them decided to use the credibility of being a past president to challenge the system, to even further some part of their agenda, besides benignly looking good, being that front man of the system, they get shot, right? Isn't that the deal?
See, now I'm wondering, has there ever been a former American president to come out and be upset about a current war? Like, was Reagan ever anti-Gulf War or GWAT? Because he got out, and then right after he got out...
well, did Clinton, I think in more likely cases, did Bill Clinton say anything about the invasion of Iraq or Afghanistan under Bush?
He went to Afghanistan a few times for like a support the troops rally.
But he wasn't. What was Bill like? I don't say what was Bill Clinton's position on? Well, Hillary voted for it at the time, so Bill probably didn't say anything. I gotta look this up. But hey, since we're halfway into it, let's go back to switching around the order and making things difficult for Jim and talk about Homefront Battle Buddies because this is a pretty exciting time for the organization. Big update that we finally sent out our board member invites yesterday and got all positive responses. A few waiting for responses still. And we have our Telegram group for the board of directors for Homefront Battle Buddies. We have our first retreat coming together here in Gardenia, April 30 to May 2nd. And Stephen, I mean, you wanted to say if you want to say anything about update on that in general, but we also wanted to talk about suicides now that we have a little more I told you so data with a serious study looking at this finally and the intersection with COVID.
Yeah, so real quick, let's back up 2 years in time. The number 22 was recognized as 22 veterans a day kill themselves. And we figured out in about 2013 that number was bullshit because not every state recorded whether or not the person that committed suicide was a veteran, and the VA doesn't keep tabs on it, even though it's kind of their job. So the number is probably, in 2019, probably about 57 veterans a day. You keep in mind that vets, not combat vets, but vets, make up about 12% of the population. 1 out of 8 people has served in some capacity in the military. Whether or not that's a Force Recon Marine or a fucking puddle pirate on a cutter trying to catch that cocaine. It doesn't... 1 out of 8, about 12%. 56 vets are killing themselves a day. And less than 200 people a day are killing themselves. So we make up 8% of the population and a third of suicide. Those are rough numbers, but those are the facts. Fast forward into COVID, and the suicide rate started doing this. So here's what we know about human psychology. Humans, especially men, need a fight. We like to have something to work against. We like pushing powers. Adam is an activist because there is something in his way, and he says, "You're fucking stupid. You're immoral. Look at my brain. Look at my compass. Go to the store, buy a moral compass. Fuckface." I don't know if you've ever said that. You should.
Not my words, no, but thank you. Well, if I may, before you go further down that line, I want to stop and read some of the article you shared because it explains your reference to the COVID context and where we are right now. And this is something that a lot of us who are just sensitive to the issue of suicide from whatever work or personal experience we've had, or just because we give a shit, we saw what was happening with COVID and lockdowns and shutdowns, and right away it was like, oh my God, suicides are going to go through the roof. Like this is going to be, it's going to be denied. It's going to be swept under the rug. But this is an undeniable consequence, and already, you have to, when it's that obvious that these policies are going to have this effect or this impact, that it's going to be measurable. That you look at what they're trying to do this for the to prevent to flatten the curve. Remember, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and you go, no, the cure is going to be worse than the disease. There's no way. Like they had no sense of when it was politicians, because they don't have accountability for the bottom line of lives destroyed or value created or opportunities missed. They're fundamentally not held accountable for that. So when they're considering lockdown, shutdown, forced unemployment crisis type policies, they don't have to do this math and go, well, shit, they just have to look good doing what they're doing and manipulate the system so that they get reelected or they get to pay off their sponsors. And by the way, side note, it's not just all getting reelected. One of the things we're seeing in this crisis is that it's a lot of behind the scenes players pulling the levers and letting there be some turnover in national leadership. Let the front men change out. But the story that you shared was from the BMJ.com, trends in suicide during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is a published article, as in a scientific journal, has all the appropriate attachment credits, blah, blah, blah. The primary author, we should at least give credit, would be Ann John, professor of public health and psychiatry, and et al. We'll say for now. Prevention, and it starts with prevention must be prioritized while we wait for a clear picture. As many countries face new stay-at-home restrictions to curb the spread of COVID-19, there are concerns that rates of suicide may increase or have already increased. Several factors underpin these concerns, including a deterioration in population mental health, higher prevalence of reported thoughts and behaviors of self-harm among people with COVID-19, problems accessing mental health services, and evidence suggesting that previous epidemics such as SARS 2003 were associated with a rise in deaths by suicide. Even SARS, which wasn't nearly as heavy-handed with the response, had a notable effect. So here we go. Widely reported studies modeling the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on suicide rates predicted increases ranging from 1% to 145%. Basically, they have no freaking clue. Largely reflecting variation in underlying assumptions. Particular emphasis has been given to the effect of the pandemic on children and young people. Numerous surveys have highlighted that their mental health has been disproportionately affected relative to older adults, and some suggest an increase in suicidal thoughts and self-harm. Supposition, however, one more paragraph, is no replacement for evidence. Timely data on rates of suicide are vital, and for some months we've been tracking and reviewing relevant studies for a living systematic review. The first version in June found no robust epidemiological studies with suicide as an outcome, but several studies reporting suicide trends have emerged more recently. Overall, the literature on the effect of COVID-19 on suicide should be interpreted with caution. Most of the available publications are preprints, letters, neither as peer-reviewed or commentaries using news reports of death by suicide as the data source.
So let's talk about that last little chunk. So real quick, part of the reason I selected that article is it's an article that I had to read for class. I am a suicide prevention counselor, so I get really good discounts on college. It's almost like they keep the market from fucking with you if you volunteer. Here's the deal. If you're going to have medical data, by scientific standards, it must be 3.5 years old. They like it to be 7 years. So they put that disclaimer in because we don't have a big enough timeline yet. The mental health community has been rather responsible because they want to say, here's what we're seeing. We can't call it scientific yet because 3.5 years. Whereas the politicians are going, COVID, bitch! COVID! We don't view science as anything. But yeah, so this time 2 years ago, the number was a little under 200. And for vets, it was about 58. And it fluctuated a little bit. Sometimes you see fluctuation within numbers. During the peak, which was about June-ish, July, a 6-week period, there were more people dying from suicide than anything else. It was the number one killer globally and also in the United States. Here's what we know so far. Here's what I can see within the data realms. The 2 worst states for suicide, especially veterans, because here's what you have to know about vets. I had 15 people. I was a team of 16 that fucking, you slept together, you showered in the same pod together, you went everywhere together, you had each other's backs, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm out and I've got to deal with that, and then I find my little group of friends, and then you say, you can't go to the bar and hang out with your friends once a week. And I'm just like, fuck. That affects you psychologically when you can't tribalize. Because people are tribal. You can't really get around that. Some people think that we're moving away from tribalism. Some people think that we're going to move away and it's going to fuck us, but whatever. Here's what we know. The 6 to 8 week period in the June-July frame, about 1,400 people daily were killing themselves. 14,000 people were killing themselves.
Well, Stephen, I want to go back to the study for just a second, since you're getting into the numbers that way, because the study here actually says that in some places it's down, in some places it's neutral, in some places it's up, and in some places it's all of the above, where it's fluctuated over the course of the last year. And of course, this is incomplete data, and that's part of what is like. How are we so great at tracking COVID deaths, but we can't track suicides?
Here's the reason. The fluctuation, when you take the numbers that you have and you put them on maps, New York and California had the biggest per capita spikes. They had the greatest percentage increases. Florida and West Virginia both went down dramatically. And then here in Georgia, you had this thing where Kemp was like, lock down, motherfuckers. And then some counties were just like, go fuck yourself, Kemp. So I moved to Dade County because the sheriff and the mayor and a few other city officials basically told restaurants to stay open. They said, you can do whatever you got to do. You can use the park to set up benches so people can eat outside. The local coffee shop would not permit you inside the store, but they would let you call in. They would come to the door, grab your card. So that was a big deal here, and we had no suicides for weeks. They had one suicide a week, and we didn't have a suicide for 7 months. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the people in Dade County were looking around and going, we're living pretty good, motherfucker. Like, because right a couple miles down the road is Chattanooga. And Chattanooga is a hot spot for COVID deaths. So it's a crime to not wear a mask. You will get a ticket. It's a crime to sit in a restaurant with more, like Chattanooga. If you're in a restaurant and they're violating COVID policy, everybody gets a ticket.
Even the people dining there.
The people dining there get a ticket because they know the law. I'm going to have another warrant for my arrest because I got a ticket and I'm not showing up. I'm not recognizing that bullshit.
What's the charge?
Endangerment to public health.
And what do they try to ask you for money first?
Yeah, it's basically a traffic ticket. If you pay your citation, you don't go to court. And I told the officer I appreciated the toilet paper.
Yeah. So this would be like a non-extraditable warrant for you, where like maybe if you get pulled over in Chattanooga or in that county or in Tennessee, you do an overnight.
Get arrested and go to court. But I'm not gonna go. Like, I'm not gonna turn myself in. I'm not gonna go talk to the dude wearing a headdress. Judges are the original trannies, by the way.
Oh shit! You went there.
Yeah, I went there. But so when you look at the fluctuation, if you look at the politics of what's going on, places with the two massive areas or places where the state has said lock the fuck down and the county's gone, we're good, bro. We're not. Or where the state says, do what you want to do. And then there's one county in West Virginia that accounts for half the deaths because the state said, we're not locking down. And the county said, lock down, motherfuckers. And they were all like, we don't. And they shot themselves because Because what happens is a lot of mental health, and people have to go to therapy for this. It's a legitimate mental condition, but we base our wealth, we base our success, we base our well-being, we base everything about us on essentially a percentage level of those around us. So when we look around, if our life's like kind of rough, and then the dude down the street, his life is fucked, we go bang, 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 my life's great. Fuck you, assholes. If
this downward social comparison theory applied at the individual level, where in groups and out groups as a basis for ego or sense of self and identity instead is replaced by individual economic comparison to people you're immediately exposed to, mostly your neighbors. And most people are generally happy being in the middle of the herd. Like, I'm okay, you're okay. At least I'm not like that guy. And that's a big part of how we don't talk about this enough, but how the American citizenry has been conditioned in terms of relationship to the rest of the world. And we support our government being the most aggressive because we have fallen for the delusion that our government is responsible for our well-being. But the thing is, it is in a sense responsible for our relative well-being because it steals from the rest of the world to pay off us privileged citizens of the empire for us to have a higher quality of life and to be able to look outside of our borders and be like, well, I'm glad I don't live there.
With that being said, we shall all take a moment. All hail Biden. All hail Biden. All hail Biden. All residents of the land of Georgia. All hail Kemp. All hail Kemp. So that's kind of, but yeah. So when we look at COVID restrictions, and when we look at COVID restrictions in an area and then the COVID restrictions in the surrounding area, we can almost predict suicide rates. So I live in Dade County, and I am a member of the suicide hotline. So if you call the hotline and you live in the Chattanooga area, you might talk to me. Don't call that fucking hotline to talk to me. Okay. But like, if you need help, call the hotline. So all of the Dade County mental health workers are now volunteering at the Hamilton County one because, and they're blaming us. The Hamilton County's government is blaming the Dade County government because, and it's like, I told a guy, I was like, if you're unhappy in Hamilton County, stop giving them your money and fucking move. Like, so what? You have to get a new state driver's license. It's fucking 8 minutes to the state line from where I live. I'm 10 minutes from a church that I go to in Tennessee. It's not that big of a deal. I live out in the country. I'm 20 minutes from a Starbucks though. Like, it's fucking baller. Move your ass. If the place that you live, New York, California, Chattanooga, is fucking ridiculous, move to Arizona. Move to New Mexico. Move to Montana. Move to West Virginia.
Montana's way too cold.
Well, isn't it West Virginia? You said they got rid of their tax?
Oh, yeah, they're looking at getting, well, they're phasing it out, I think 60%. They're getting rid of, which tax? Income tax? Yeah, we covered it yesterday.
Well, if I could I would much rather them get rid of sales tax because I can work under the table and avoid taxes.
This is true.
But so you ask where Homefront comes into play with all this. We look at the numbers, we see the stuff. We're developing a mental health awareness group, and we're looking at some stuff. Why does that matter? Here's why. People need people like them. So the best people, and this is science, this is fucking known data, when a woman is brutally beaten or raped, hospitals have protocol to call counselors who have also been brutally beaten and raped, because they can go, I've been there. I'm here for you. I know what it's like. There's a woman that I know. I don't have her permission to say her name. She's got no ear. she's got a hole because her rapist ripped her fucking ear off. So when people are like, you don't understand my pain, I'm like, some dude said that in front of her. I'm like, you need to shut the fuck up. You sound like a retard. I've been shot at. I don't understand her pain. Like, you shut the fuck up. And she has kept more women from killing themselves than anybody else in Chattanooga. Like, she's accredited with that. So, if you understand what it's like to go to a war zone thinking that you're fighting for the moral compass of the world, and you end up guarding a private corporation's property, and you end up fucking people over and helping other people out, and you realize that the government's just using you as a fucking pawn, and you come home and the VA tells you to fuck off, and the government's fucking people, and you see it, and it's driving you literally insane. People that can best help you deal with all of the veteran-related bullshit are vets. So what we're doing is we're creating, I'm going to say it this way, we're creating a tribe of people that can help the other members of the tribe deal with their mental health stuff. And my goal is to work with some people who can eventually be workers themselves, who can then go spread the message of freedom and of liberty and of mental peace. When you do the things that I have, CJ likes to talk about this. I was on a phone call with CJ and another guy, and CJ goes, 4 combat deployments and 3 Bronze Stars. Well, that's fucking fine and dandy until you start to wonder, how the fuck did I earn Bronze Stars? Like, what's the entire story that goes behind it? Because soldiers don't kill soldiers. Sons kill sons. Brothers kill brothers. And at some point in time, I had to deal with the fact that I made a kid an orphan. I had to deal with the fact that my kid brother died, not in combat, but my kid brother died, and I remember, like, my fucking mom collapsing on the casket. And that's an image that will forever live with me. It was one of the hardest days of my life. And another really hard day of my life was when I realized that I probably caused another lady to collapse on her son's casket. Like, the shit that we had to do at my little brother's funeral, they had to do at their funeral, right? We had to push people out of the room to give my mom privacy, and there were like 5 people in the room. We went from like 300 people to 500, like that, because mom was having a mental breakdown because she just lost her youngest fucking child. And the people that told her were like, he died with honor. And it's like, it doesn't fucking matter that he died with honor. He's dead. Right? All she cared about at that moment in time, she doesn't get to see him get married. She doesn't get grandbabies from him. She doesn't get any more Christmas memories. She doesn't get any memories of him anymore. Like, the memories stopped there. So I came to a point where I realized that I created that same level of pain for an unnumbered amount of moms. And in the American side of global war on terror, a woman might lose 1 son or 1 husband. On the Afghani side of the house, dude, if you killed my fucking dad, and I know where you're at, I'm coming for you. So now this woman is losing she just lost her husband, and she's about to lose her son, and she's already lost 1 son, and you get to thinking about the pain that you've caused other people, and it gets to you. Like, it fucking unless you're a sociopath, it fucking gets to you. So, what Homefront's doing is it's helping people confront that pain that they have essentially caused themselves as being a member of, I can't believe I'm going to fucking quote a Marine, war is a racket. Like, I was involved in somebody making money, and in order to make them more money, I killed people. You can say what you want. You can, like, my fucking pictures on the Walmart Wall of Heroes in fucking Sarasota, Florida. It should be on the Halliburton Wall of Heroes. It should be on the British Petroleum Wall of Heroes. Because the only people... I didn't fight for liberty or freedom or, like, hey, Mercedes. Mercedes is here. Bring Mercedes up. I want Mercedes to know how much freer you and CJ and myself and Jim have made her.
Oh, you don't have to tell me. I tell veterans this at the bar when we have this conversation. I've been crying, sorry. What Stephen does is what I do too for my community. And it's hard to hear other people talk about it too. Because when I'm at the bar and I'm talking to a veteran who's, I went over there and fought for your freedoms, well, I was here being abused. I was here and the system was neglecting me when I was a child while you were over there helping other people be neglected and hurt too. I'm a victim of the drug war. I always have been. I never had a fucking chance. But like I said on another podcast, the system did try to work for me. They did try to do something different because in my community, like Stefan's, our community saw the issue, and as community members like I do, started doing things within our own community to try to stop this problem. So now I'm 30 years old. What's going on here is coming to a head finally because I'm 30, the other kids are 30, 25, 35. Like we're in this decade group where we don't have enough mental health services. Our suicide rates are astronomical. Nebraska's I-80 corridor has all these sex trafficking. So when I hear a Marine, or a Marine in my case, because my family's Marines and like that's what's in this area, and get drunk at the bar. Well, I fought for your freedom. No, you fucking didn't. You fought for the oil racket that has put our country in debt and has been a continuous war for my entire life. And I'm sorry
Which,
I'm
by the
telling
way,
you
is
this.
$60 a gallon. So,
And is why dairy increased and why is cost of food increased, which is why cost of living increased, which is the compound inflation problem that we're facing. And then you see me, myself, I was a benefit to all these federal programs that were trying to help low-income kids. Like those programs helped me. I was one of the last kids that benefited from them. I watched them be defunded. The government radicalized me as a child because I was writing letters asking them not to end these government programs that were helping me and my friends. And they said, fuck you. And now all my friends were getting arrested because they didn't have support services as kids.
So
Speaking to my soul, Stephen.
well, one of the things, and I'm very careful of how I talk to my fellow vets. I was technically special operations, and I have a top security clearance. So when I was suicidal, I did the right thing and called the VA, and they told me that the Atlanta region at the time did not have a top secret certified
That you could even talk to.
Yeah, because
you can't talk about it. You can't fucking talk like me and my abuse. Who am I gonna fucking talk about it? Like I don't remember my therapist from when I was 5 when the state ordered me to go into therapy. Who am I supposed to talk to about this that can identify? So now I provide that service for others because I can identify.
Here's the answer to the question, at least for the veteran community. My name's Steven. I'm the guy you talk to.
And from the civilian side, I'm Mercedes, and I know where you can go to get help because I am not a mental health professional. I am only a community member, and it's my job to get you where you need to go.
So, and I want to, we're 50 minutes into the show. We're probably 45 minutes into this thing, and people are crying, which sucks. So we're going to change
It doesn't suck. It's called therapy. You
I
have
don't.
to feel the emotions. That's part of why you're in emotional turmoil mentally, because you're not processing properly, because you were taught how to suppress them so that you could do those hard things and not have a mental break while you're doing them. So when they do surface, you need to process them. You need to cry, and then you need to have a productive pray to party and get out of it and look at kitties.
So one of the things that I'm a big
Yes.
fan of, besides little pussies, um, is
Little
what?
black.
It's a kitty. It's a kitty.
And you
I'm,
identify as
I'm
a
a
big
real
black
big
hawk.
fan.
It's fine.
I'm a real big fan of what's called multi-layered therapies, which is a really big, complex word until you think about it for 10 seconds.
Here,
Um,
I'm gonna go off screen. You guys have
so
fun.
every 2 weeks, I go get acupuncture. Um, every so often, I go talk to counselors. I have my health routine, and part of your mental health routine involves your physical health routine. So acupuncture is a Eastern medicine thing, and the Western way of explaining it is they're dropping needles into nerve endings that associate themselves with various things. So the nerve ending for my wrist is actually my thigh for some reason. The nerve ending that affects my wrist is in my thigh. It's really weird. My acupuncture Eastern medicine person is white, so they could be lying to me. But no, I do acupuncture. I recently got cleared. I broke both of my legs at the same time, and then I rebroke my right leg twice. And at the time, I was told by the
How did that
military.
happen?
So when did this happen?
No,
15.
how?
I was in an attack. This happened in a combat fight.
Okay.
I can't really talk about all of the things because fucking top secret and shit. I don't want to go to prison because I'm not Hillary Clinton. I can't have a server next to my toilet. But I was the most severely injured person that did not die as a result. And I was told that I would never run again. 5 years later, 6 years later, 5 years later, I don't know. I'm running. I'm now lifting weights again. I did wait the entire 5 years because I didn't want to be amputated. Yeah, I have rods in my legs. And if you break your leg, you could potentially bend the rod. And if you bend the rod, they have to cut the leg to get the rod out. And if they have to cut the entire leg, that's called an amputation. Um, and that's something that affects veterans, right? I am 28 years old. I am 28. The last time I was in a gunfight was 6 years ago. And I have to make lifestyle decisions because of my physical and mental health that only exist because of things I did on behalf of Halliburton.
There's just one thing I wanted to say, in bringing this back to Homefront Battle Buddies, is that, and in your case very specifically, I mean, I came up with the vision, not that it's something like crazy special, and I want to say there are a lot of different efforts to do similar things, but I didn't have. I didn't know that was part of your story, that you couldn't find someone to talk to because you needed to discuss things that were under that top secret clearance.
The only
And
reason that I did not kill myself is my brother has a top security clearance. And he went through the same issue. And so he already knew about like this weird underground network that exists. But here's the issue with the weird underground network that exists. I love my brother. If you say mean shit about my brother, I will hunt you motherfuckers. He's my brother. I love him dearly. This underground network, they believe in the power of the state.
yeah, so that's the challenge. Now, for me, I had a secret clearance, which people who don't know, it's classified, secret, top secret, generally the three primary standards of classified intelligence within the military. And I came out with IVAW first and said, fuck it. Like, nothing I have to say is crazier than anything that, Bradley, Dow, Chelsea, Manning has had to say in all of this. I think I'm going to be okay. But fundamentally, there's still a problem in a lot of ways. Like, I can go to the VA and say, can I have these pills? And if they give me the pills, it's cool. Okay, I'll get them free. With
You
anything
talking about the bag of death?
yeah, right. Well, when I first went to the VA, was a long time ago, and I said I was having trouble sleeping. And I talked to a shrink for about 5 minutes, and I walked out of there with a brown paper bag with 5 prescriptions, and 3 of them had suicide listed as a side effect. And fortunately, I had the wherewithal to say, I'm not gonna take these. Except I think it was Xanax was one of them, and it was like getting stoned but with a headache. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not. I don't need this. And I was able to turn to cannabis because I was already in within the anti-war movement and IVAW, a community that definitely celebrated cannabis use. But if I didn't have that or that expectation and access for myself, Washington D.C., it was pretty easy to get pot there. It could have been a lot worse for me. But what it comes down to is that those of us who recognize that we are victims of the system, resulting from our own misplaced trust in it, will never be able to get what we want in healing from that same system. And as excited as I am about Homefront Battle Buddies developing right now, I mean, it might be as simple as, for vets who have nothing else to look forward to, I want us to be big enough so that any veteran can, for free, at least come to one of our retreats and say, well, guess what? You can come get stoned in the woods with a bunch of vets for free, and now you got something to look forward to, so don't kill yourself. And then be connected into a bigger community of mutual support. But I'm just as excited in a deeper sense that we might end up with a sister organization for former law enforcement. And then for create a model. And there are, I want to say, like, about with what Mercedes brought into this, that there are a lot of different groups doing this for different people who have shared experiences of victimization or trauma, and we're coming together like never before. This is a beautiful mark of human progress, that we have the resources and the wherewithal and the overall inclination to say, yeah, let's deal with this shit. Let's break the cycle of violence. And the fact that we are able to do this right now is just it's beautiful. And I feel like it's almost overdue, but it's not that it's like it's overdue or not. It's just it's part of the story for humanity unfolding. Other countries are going to be doing, if not are already doing similar things in their own way. Unfortunately, a lot of this has come out of the failure of existing groups that have shown to be very corrupt. Whereas, we want to raise money to uh, just make this happen and bring vets together in retreats like we have envisioned. And I'm very excited that we're going to be doing this April 30, May 2nd. And we have an amazing team coming together. So, Stephen, anything else you want to say about this? And then we'll get to our grab bag and come back to you. And I know we're behind on comments now. It's been a pretty intense first half of the show, but if you want to catch up on comments and just be putting them up while I go through these few headlines, nothing crazy urgent, but we're going to cover North Korea. Oh, by the way, I pulled up from the New York Times. This is from 2007. No, keep Stephen on here for this. This is the follow up to the Bill Clinton's position on Iraq. Bill Clinton flatly asserts he opposed the war at start. During a campaign swing for his wife, former President Bill Clinton said flatly yesterday that he opposed the war in Iraq from the beginning, a statement that is more absolute than his comments before the invasion in March 2003. Before the invasion, Mr. Clinton did not precisely declare that he opposed the war. A week before military action began, however, he did say that he preferred to give weapons inspections more time and that an invasion was not necessary to topple Saddam Hussein. So he was endorsing the objective of toppling Saddam Hussein.
So, real
Yeah.
quick, I need to stop you just for a moment because we kind of fucked up. We're an hour into the show and we haven't talked about the comment contest. We're going to be dealing with a lot of fucked up shit today. So, I'm engaged. My fiance is the most opposite person of me possible. She's pretty. She's easy to get along with. But she took me to Buc-ee's, and if you're not sure what Buc-ee's is, God bless you, kind sir. God bless you. It's a fucking ridiculous gas station. It's like the size of the old Walmarts.
Yes.
So, comment contest of the
Texas.
day. My Buc-ee's Hawaiian shirt. Funniest fucking comments about the shirt. Or anything in the background. So the Boogaloo flag, the fucking mirror from American Horror Stories, the stone cat. That I'm not really sure why we have that. By the way, Adam, I fucked up, and this is gonna be another comment contest. I'm gonna pay for somebody today to be in the Producers Club. So we're gonna do 2 contests. I've had this rifle for a good while now. It is a Daniel Defense. It's got the Vortex Strike Eagle on it. That's the illuminated reticle, 1-6. It's got an Olight, motherfucker. It's got a cheesy ass thing on it, but it does not have a beautiful name yet. Name my rifles.
Oh. All right.
Name it.
All right. I think it's a good one. I think we're ready, Steven. Let's get into it. We got some good headlines today, believe it or not. NBCnews.com kicks us off with this. Well, wait, should we let Jim do the promos or just skip that for now? We'll come back to it at the end of the show. Fuck it. We'll do it live. All right, Jim, get us to NBCnews.com. North Korea launched 2 ballistic missiles, U.S. Japanese officials say. News of the launch comes after it was reported that the country fired at least 1 missile over the weekend, an action the U.S. downplayed. Yes. South Korea also confirmed the launch. A U.S. official told NBC News on Wednesday evening, Washington time, that they were most likely short-range ballistic missiles. Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga told reporters that the projectiles were ballistic missiles and that the action marked the first such provocation in a year. As he said, quote, the test threatens the peace and security of the region and our nation. It is also against the UN resolution. We strictly and strongly protest this launch. He added, the government's understanding is that the missile landed outside our exclusive economic zone. This has been confirmed, however. We will still need to remain vigilant. We have convened the National Security Council to assess the situation and are working with the United States and South Korea to protect the lives and the peaceful livelihoods of our citizens. And I mean, there's a couple different ways about looking at this, because if you want, like, I sometimes want to like individualize or personify a state to say like, is what they're doing ethical, right? And that's really being too kind to governments, because it's presuming that they have the consent of their people, that they're somehow voluntary, legitimate organizations to begin with. But does North Korea have the right to arm itself in defense in a relative way that's appropriate compared to neighboring nations? Yeah, sort of. And 2 ballistic missiles. Do you know how many nuclear weapons the United States military has tested? I mean, the proportionality of this is also insane. But given that the North Korean government is a government like any other in the world today, pretty much, it doesn't have the consent of its people. It's not a consensual institution. So what it's doing is, exercising its, its authority as the let's see, what is this comment here? Too unique. What would you have us do? Why is that on the screen for all this? You want me to read that? Private POV, I love you guys so much. All right, thanks. Just getting caught up on the comments. All right. So with North Korea, does the government have the consent of its people? Obviously, no. So they're really in a sort of among the sovereign states, a kind of jockeying for power between each other. And if you look at the history of North Korea and the economic suppression, the isolation, it's not like, hey, let's support you and welcome you. It's, you've done bad things. We're going to bully you and keep you oppressed in order to keep you as this punching bag. And so, when you see a story like this, you go, they're raising the specter of North Korea again. Are they saying, hey, North Korea launched 2 ballistic missiles, U.S. Japanese officials say, as if this is news without any historical context? I mean, it's really interesting to see that when NBC News publishes a story like this, they zoom in on 2 ballistic missiles coming out of North Korea without any sense of scale or scope. Just, oh my gosh, this is unacceptable. These are bad people with weapons, waving them around, right, or testing them in the open. So, with what do we get from the mainstream media for context? Next article comes from The Sun. DEFCON UN, Kim Jong-un branded a catastrophic threat. It's in quotes. From who, we'll find out. As he secretly preps nukes, launches missiles, and sells arms to terrorists. Oh, he's secretly prepping nukes. It's so secret that the sun.co.uk got the scoop. Yeah, okay. North Korea has been branded a catastrophic threat to global security. All right, I guess that's a redundant sub headline here. Kim's regime is pressing on with its quest for nuclear weapons, which is funding through massive cyber heists, carrying out illegal trades, and even selling arms to terrorists. Now, what terrorists are they selling arms to the United States? No. That's what the U.S. military-industrial complex does. Those terrorists in the United States federal government, they don't buy weapons from North Korea. Don't be silly. But massive cyber heists. Okay, so this is basically begging to be translated for the rest of the world. Like, hey, it's our governments, the good guys, telling North Korea, hey, you're only allowed to steal from your own citizens like we do. You can't steal from our citizens. That's our job. Now, and this guy goes, well, I can't steal from my citizens anymore. They're all fucking broke because of economic sanctions and what I've had to do to maintain power. But you made it like Kim Jong-un and the old government of North Korea is a pawn in this. If there aren't big bad guys in the world, you cannot justify the massive budgets of the militaries of the rest of the world. And with China, I'm sure they have their own version, because they have the world's second largest military, bigger by personnel than the United States, smaller only in terms of budget and certain weaponry measurements. But experts told The Sun Online the ongoing threat posed by North Korea told The Sun Online of the ongoing threat posed by North Korea as U.S. President Joe Biden prepares to meet what is likely to be one of the major international issues of his time in the White House. Scott Snyder, a senior fellow for Korea Studies at the Council for Foreign Relations. Oh, the Council for Foreign Relations. That's a great, credible source. Told The Sun Online the regime is the most potentially catastrophic security threat in 2021. The renegade state yesterday reportedly launched 2 ballistic missiles into the Sea of Japan, confirmed U.S. officials in the Japanese Coast Guard as Kim Jong-un resumed his warmongering military tests. I mean, this reads like, this story is not going to age well, and it might take decades for humanity to properly rewrite the history of North Korea. But this is so just laden with dishonest propaganda, and this dishonest is not like they walk a certain line. Can you call this article can you say that they're lying when they say that these are warmongering military tests? No, it's not technically untrue, but if you want to say that these are warmongering military tests, well, what does that make the United States military? The super war god of all time, ruler of the universe, star of armed conflict. You couldn't come up with words that would appropriately describe the difference in scale if what Kim Jong-un is doing is warmongering military tests. Yeah. Yeah. The last, so by the way, they do include that the last rocket test conducted by North Korea took place in March 2020. It's been a year. It's been a year. The launches come as North Korea has already lashed out at Biden with a scathing rebuke by Kim Jong Un's sister, Kim Yo Jong, and reportedly Pyongyang has already refused to engage with efforts by Washington to reopen communication. Kim and former President Donald Trump had enjoyed something of a bromance, but despite overtures of friendship, all progress stalled following the collapse of the Hanoi summit in 2019. The regime is believed to be steaming ahead with its nuclear weapons program, unveiling 2 new types of missile in the past few months, despite ongoing economic hardship in North Korea. Now, where in the story do they say that all of our sources were the same ones that told us Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction? We're being lied to by the same people. But what this represents, relative to the Biden, I almost called it the Obama administration. Yeah, it really should be referred to as the Obama Harrison or the Harris Obama administration. But Mr. Snyder, the article actually concludes with a quote from Snyder and a comparison. The main difference from the Obama administration is Blinken's clear admission that the North Korea threat has grown. Is that a typo? Is it supposed to be Biden? It says Blinken. I didn't misread that. The North Korea threat has grown, and therefore implicitly that strategic patience cannot be an option. Meanwhile, Dr. Pancho said, from what I know, talking to people in Washington, Biden will look to be more balanced than Trump on North Korea. The sanctions will not be going anywhere, but there will be more engagement at the working level. And it is clear to everyone that Biden has no incentive to meet with Kim Jong-un. No incentive. This is a terrible guy, huge threat, but he's a threat to American citizens. But I don't want to meet with him. I mean, talk to him. Why talk to him? That would ruin the game. That would ruin the whole specter of fear that we've raised around North Korea. Now, why is this happening? Remember, what was the big international threat under Trump? Russia. But there's a specific Russia connection, Russian Trump connection alleged in everything that the mainstream media was pushing there. They can't really make that, make it about that the same way. But they actually did with the Biden administration, at least going after certain accounts were frozen. I mean, it was pretty petty shit over Alexei Navalny's sentencing. Alexei Navalny being the Russian opposition leader challenging Vladimir Putin's power. But North Korea, why is Trump decided, hey, I'm going to go to North Korea. I'm going to shake hands. We're going to stroll down the DMZ together, me and Kim Jong-un, and we're going to try to make peace. And to serve Trump's populism, that was great. The bigger propaganda consideration there was that North Korea was not as valuable to Trump as the fear specter as it was as a prize of peace. And that was maybe, and I don't want to say, oh yes, things were better under Trump and they're worse under Biden, but maybe in this one count they are. That in order to appease Trump's particular, brand of populism, he had to make those kinds of overtures towards, the bad guy Kim Jong-un. Whereas with Biden, but of course, I hate to say I told you so, but it didn't go anywhere, did it? Whereas with Biden looks at North Korea, and and it's not necessarily Biden himself, but the Biden administration, the Council on Foreign Relations, all of the string pullers in American foreign policy, they look at North Korea now and go, North Korea is more valuable as the bad guy than a potential good guy. So we're going to make him in that category again. And in North Korea, they're going, why are we being victimized? Because the people of North Korea are the ones who really suffer under the sanctions and under the Kim Jong-un regime. And it's, you have to acknowledge these fundamental power dynamics. And I hate to make this about Narcos again, because I watched another episode of Narcos Mexico last night. But it's like when you create the drug war, you're creating an opportunity for people who are willing to break the law to tap into this fountain of money that is now concentrated in the hands of a few drug lords that they then fight over, and it leads to the violence and the 80,000 whatever it is dead in as a result of drug war violence in Mexico. I mean, the scope of that It's fucking insane. And you go, well, who's really responsible for that policy? Do you blame Mexico, like America's ghetto? Like being treated like that. The same way with crack cocaine in L.A. imported by the CIA. Who's really in charge here? Who really holds the power? And so to blame Mexico for the drug war, for the Mexican drug lords, to blame Colombia for the cocaine problems there, as opposed to the American government for setting the drug war policy, is to ignore who's really got the power in the room. And this is important when it comes to even American-Russia relations, because there's this mythology holdover in the American psyche that America and Russia are, and oh shit, now it's China. But before that, it was America and Russia as sort of equal great world powers, the two great empires of the world, right? And of course, it was always, it went from a bipolar world to a tripolar world with China by some people's descriptions. But that is to hugely distort reality, which if you just look at, there's like one important number. And it's the how many times bigger is the Russian or the American economy compared to the Russian economy, and it's 30 to 40 times. I kind of want to Google this now just to reference it again, but let's ask Google, how much bigger is American economy compared to Russia? Russia's economy is roughly a tenth the size of the U.S.'s. This is according to the World Bank with Russia's GDP in 2015. I've seen by different estimates that it's 30 to 40 times the size. Maybe that's government spending, but no, a tenth the size. And so this is, I'm looking at geopoliticalcultures.com, A Tale of Two Economies was the first one that came up when asking Google. But even if I'm off by a scale of 3 to 1, right? It's not 30 times, and by this estimate, oh my gosh, it's a tenth. It's a tenth. Wow, this article looks really interesting. I'm gonna have to come back to this. But with a country whose economy is 1/10 the size of the United States, it's almost more accurate to describe Russia as a satellite of the American empire rather than a competing superpower. Not necessarily true with China. But then again, look at how to bring it back to North Korea. What about let's ask Google that question, all right? How did I do this? How many times bigger is U.S. economy compared to North Korea? North Korea versus United States. I don't want to get delayed on this too much. But if someone wants to pop up with that in the comments, let me know. I'm not even keeping track of our Telegram chat today. Okay. It's the co-host crew going at it. So,
hey, Adam, I'm going to pop on this for a second. I found this. It might be what you were thinking of. The American GDP is 68 times bigger than the Russian GDP.
68?
Yeah.
So it's even bigger. So
yeah.
They're looking. So the 10 times is looking at some different statistic, but GDP is a more meaningful measurement towards what I'm looking at is the economic output of a country. 68 times. And by the way, with North Korea, and I don't know if this is the GDP or the sort of other metric that makes it closer, but this came out from mylifeelsewhere.com. Size of North Korea compared to the United States. North Korea. Oh shit! I'm sorry. That was its size.
And then for North Korea, I came up with 17. I don't know if I believe that number. The reason I don't believe that number is I really feel like Russia is going to be vastly bigger than North Korea. Like I would expect this to be thousands of times bigger. Also, keep in mind, American records are pretty open. Like you can. It's easy to hide stuff, but for the most part, we can pretty much well guess. And North Korea, not so much. Like, it's basically Kim Jong-un has declared that the GDP is this.
Okay, hold on. Here's a good comparison. And this is not even total, but economic comparison: North Korea versus the United States. In the United States, you will make 35.2 times more money. North Korea has a GDP per capita of 1,700 as of 2015. United States, 59,800. And and there's still a lot more of us. Right? The population of the United States is a lot bigger than North Korea. So I mean it's almost a joke. Really, it's almost a joke to suggest that North Korea is any kind of threat to the United States whatsoever. It is almost absurd. I mean, they have to raise these absurd specters of, well, it's a terrorist state, well, it's got nukes, things like that, and even all of that just totally falls flat.
Yeah. Also, I think this is the American government's budget is 6 times bigger than Russia, and our debt is 6 times greater than Russia.
Yeah, there you go.
So, bye.
Well, speaking of Russia, that gets us to our next story, transitioning into to more international news. Rollcall.com: Russia outsources disinformation efforts to foreign troll farms. Ooh, I'm looking forward to getting into this story. Nigeria, Ghana, and Mexico are among countries where Russia contracts with local hackers to aim disinformation at the United States. With the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released an unclassified report this month outlining a widespread influence campaign launched by Russia in 2020 to boost former President Donald Trump's candidacy and knock down then candidate Joe Biden. It confirmed for the first time what social media companies and researchers had known for more than a year. Moscow outsourced its influence operations to companies in Ghana, Mexico, and Nigeria. The report said the Kremlin-linked influence entity and troll farm known as Lakta Internet Research had used unwitting third country nationals in those 3 countries to propagate false narratives through social media accounts as well as fake news websites about divisive issues in American politics. Jessica Brandt, head of policy and research at the Alliance for Securing Democracy of the German Marshall Fund, said, quote, "It's useful when the U.S. government puts on the record what researchers, academics, and civil society groups have been saying for a long time. It puts it in the public record and gives it a certain authority. One likely reason why the Kremlin turned to entities in other countries," the report said, "is that Lakta, previously known as the Internet Research Agency, had been under intense scrutiny by U.S. law enforcement agencies, the Pentagon's Cyber Command, and social media companies ever since former Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller III laid out in great detail the agency's role in interfering with the 2016 U.S. election. Governments and their spy agencies launching influence operations against their adversaries, whether that's the United States or other governments and domestic political opponents, are increasingly turning to commercial entities to outsource operations because it provides cover and plausible deniability. According to researchers, some researchers are calling for tightening U.S. laws to stop such interference. And this is just really awesome to see this in black and white, out in the open, and when that they're not just saying, "Oh, well, this is a limited thing. This is like, oh, this is the only time it happened. Russia did this." Because when I see a story like this, I think, okay, so this is what's coming out in the open. This is what they're willing to let us know now. What is this covering up? Excuse me. What is this diverting from? What are they actually doing behind the scenes that might be a lot worse than this? And here, this article at least comes out and says it. Other governments and domestic political opponents. Does that, hello, that's us. That's the Libertarian Party. Are increasingly turning to commercial entities to outsource the operations. So they get, and plausible deniability. Think about this. This is the evolution of COINTELPRO. And I will say this every time it comes up. If you haven't at least read the Wikipedia article for the counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, Go read it. The FBI program to render ineffective anti-war and black power activists in the 60s and 70s. So how are they doing it now? The techniques evolve. The objective is the same. Hold on to power. Squash opposition. Anybody who challenges your power, just make them irrelevant. Stop them from doing that. That's the goal. They didn't want to kill people like Fred Hampton. That wasn't the point. But now, with today's technologically driven world, with everything happening on social media, on the internet, you can make activists, you can make libertarian candidates ineffective by manipulating social media. Or, as the article calls it, launching influence operations against their adversaries. And if you think it's only the Russians that are doing this, and no one in the United States government, and no one in the Russian, or no one, did I say, no one in the Republican Party? I almost said the Russian Party, yeah. No one in the Democratic Party? Come on. Outsourcing, so Lee Foster, Senior Manager for Information Operations Analysis of the security research firm FireEye, said, outsourcing of influence operations is something we see a lot. The operations include troll farms trying to influence discussions in other countries, fabricated news websites, or other campaigns. Governments and spy agencies are also tapping into the social media and consumer marketing expertise of private contractors who might have a better sense of engaging with an audience and generating virality or getting a spike in notices and mentions for a particular message, Foster said. The role of a troll farm in Accra, Ghana, that was found to be targeting American voters, was first reported by CNN in March 2020, the same day Facebook and Twitter said they had taken down dozens of accounts linked to a non-governmental organization in Ghana that appeared to have ties with Kremlin-backed individuals at Lakta. Now, this goes on. Other countries targeted. Not all influence operations and troll farms target the United States. In 2019, Facebook said it took down hundreds of accounts operated with ties to Saudi Arabia's government. All right, why Voga, Kim's sister, is him in drag. Come on, okay. Why are you leaving comments like that up long? You really want me to read that, huh? All right.
Because it's funny.
Oh, okay. In 2019, so anyway, the accounts were targeting regional rivals such as Iran, Turkey, and Qatar. The company said Facebook also removed accounts operated by marketing firms that had ties to the government in Egypt and the United Arab Emirates. All the U.S. officials and researchers focused attention on Russia, China, and Iran, which target American audiences. If you look beyond them, you'll see Saudi Arabia and the UAE that seem to have been very aggressively using these tactics for some time, said Emerson Brooking, a resident fellow at the Digital Forensic Lab of the Atlantic Council. Now, I think this is going to heat up. Like, where does this go? By the way, where does this go? In Israel, this is a great article. Former spies operate for-profit persona management consultancy, sometimes called reputation management companies, including one called Archimedes Group, whose role was highlighted in an Atlantic City Council report in 2019. The group was hired to try to influence voters in national elections across the globe. Facebook removed dozens of accounts operated by Archimedes that had been targeting audiences in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. Facebook took down the accounts because they pushed what the social media company calls coordinated inauthentic behavior, essentially activities by operators pretending to be real people and spreading disinformation or manipulating truths. So I think there's going to be an evolution of social media and evolution of the online conversation that kind of makes this irrelevant. I hate to say it now, but it's like we're kind of as a species, we're still learning how to use the internet, learning how to use social media. And I know for most people, if you're watching this show, you're in the top percentile of people who are able to see through the bullshit, who are able to process information, check credible sources, and are willing to put in a little time and effort to think things through rather than just believing what you're told by the mainstream media or what you see being shared on your Facebook feed. Most people aren't like that. Most people aren't active. They are passive consumers of information. And that's why this stuff works. I don't think it's going to work for long. All right, now we go to a related story to January 6th again. And you'll see why this comes back to internet and troll farms and the relationship here. But Reuters has this: amid setbacks, prosecutors abandoned some claims in U.S. Capitol riot cases. And if it wasn't enough to point this out about the shooting in Colorado. The shooter was someone that the FBI was tracking, but the FBI, instead of going and preventing that shooting from happening, they were busy tracking down every last grandma who went to the January 6th false flag insurrection at the Capitol. Prosecutors made some serious claims after the deadly U.S. Capitol attack, saying they had evidence rioters planned to kill elected officials, suggesting a Virginia man at the building received directives to gas lawmakers, and accusing another suspect of directing mayhem on January 6th with encrypted messages. But the Justice Department has since acknowledged in court hearings that some of its evidence concerning the riot carried out by a mob of supporters of former President Trump to try to overturn his election laws is less damning than it initially indicated. And there's so many echoes of this throughout the American legal system, because they come at you, and we know this is how it's engineered. Prosecutors don't really face consequences for getting things wrong. You know, if a prosecutor overcharges someone who's been arrested and then ends up dropping the charges later, like there's no ding on their record. There's no inefficiency in the system that they're held accountable for. And yet the victim, especially, I mean, if you get arrested for drugs and they're trying to pin other stuff on you to hold you for whatever, like this is how the American legal system is engineered. It's adversarial. It's not people seeking justice. And I get, so there's certain, intellectual adversarial nature in that is appropriate to find the truth. But what I mean in this is that you have the cops and the prosecutors actively seeking to charge you with as much as they possibly can. So in a sense, this January 6th riot, the fact that the FBI went out heavy-handed, charged them with a lot more than they could, is not special. But what makes this special is it happened like never before on the national stage, where the FBI came out and said and then politicized it, and they made it about Trump. Now, normally the politicization is just fucking citizens are terrible, and you need good overlords in government and cops to have more power in order to keep everybody safe from you. So in the case of this getting downgraded, a charge of sedition, meaning incitement of a rebellion, has not been brought against any of the more than 400 people arrested to date. The most serious charges have been assault, conspiracy, and obstruction of Congress or law enforcement. Prosecutors are in the early stages of building criminal cases ahead of the trial, stemming from an attack that left 5 people dead, including a police officer, forced lawmakers to hide for their own safety, and interrupted the former congressional certification of President Joe Biden's election victory. But missteps by the government could harm its credibility as accused ringleaders begin asking courts to drop some of the most serious charges. Wait. The government has credibility left? I don't know about that. Our next story, Yahoo News. Uncharted waters. Judges are banning some Capitol riot suspect from the internet, despite the fact that the charges against them aren't what the other parts of the government said they were. And I love the picture with this guy, the woman crying. Gina Bisignano, owner of a Beverly Hills eyelash and skincare salon, was charged with taking part in the U.S. Capitol riot on January 6th, where police used tear gas under a court ban. If Bisignano goes online while awaiting trial, she risks being jailed. And to the extent that our lives exist online, this is a sentence before judgment. And I get it that there is if someone is a threat, and in order for a judge to feel comfortable releasing them on bail or bond and saying that they're not a threat, they have to agree to certain terms. Okay, there's a sort of reasonableness in that. But to ban someone from the internet, to take away their freedom of speech, so you can't communicate with the public through the internet, that seems like a different violation of rights. And so this is what they're doing now. Judges have been reluctant to ban anyone from the internet, a restriction that essentially cuts a person off from much of modern society and has been reserved mostly for accused and convicted pedophiles. For those who know that they're going to use the internet to find and take advantage of young people on the internet. But even then, it's like saying, well, you were breathing air when you murdered that guy, so allegedly, so we're going to ban you from breathing air until we determine that it wasn't you who murdered that guy. But if it was you, then we're going to lock you up for life if you survive. I know that's a kind of absurd comparison, but figured you'd remember it. So this idea of saying that even a convicted pedophile or an accused pedophile can't use the internet because they might use it. It's like saying, well, you can't, whatever, you can't breathe air. You can't use a kitchen knife because you might hurt somebody with it because we think you might have hurt somebody until we determine. And now this is taking it to a different level of censoring people based on accusations, and it might create a much more dangerous precedent where any kind of activist gets accused of anything that has anything to do with the internet. Now they're not allowed on the internet. And I think about the Crypto Six, who we're going to be mentioning in our promotions here at the end of the show. But the Crypto Six, like with Ian Freeman, because he's being accused of these financial crimes that are all internet based, he might not be allowed to use the internet, which takes him away from his primary source of income, which is true for a lot of Americans today. So, but as toxic disinformation becomes an increasingly dangerous threat, driving domestic terrorism and violence, that's so many big words that are just so nebulous in their definitions. Toxic disinformation becomes an increasingly dangerous threat, driving domestic terrorism and violence. This is what political oppression sounds like in 2021. Well, if you don't agree with me, what you have to say is toxic disinformation. It could also be misleading medical advice, but whatever it is, we'll get you censored. The courts are facing vexing new questions around how often and under what circumstances those accused of taking part should be taken offline altogether, said Nina Jankowicz, fellow at the Wilson Center, Washington think tank, where she studies disinformation. Quote, we are headed into uncharted waters given the threats we see continuing and the heightened alerts. It is clear things are not dissipating. That is why judges are making these calls. In the case of Bisignano, the ban might have been an easy one for the judge to make. The defendant asked for it. Her lawyer saw it as one of the few bargaining chips the Capitol riot suspect from California had to stay out of jail for now. And so they used that. Her attorney said, if it weren't for social media, she wouldn't even be a defendant. She knows that is what got her jammed in the first place. Yet attorneys for others accused of taking part in the attack on the Capitol are aggressively fighting the restrictions, and judges are struggling with how far to take them. So we go now to our segment on Vice President Harris. CNBC, Vice President Harris will oversee effort to resolve problems at U.S.-Mexico border. President Joe Biden tasked Vice President Kamala Harris with leading efforts to coordinate with Mexico and the Northern Triangle nations. The assignment marks Harris's first major policy role since she was sworn in January. Harris this week called the situation at the border a huge problem. Now, for contrast, for headline saying the same thing, Politico has this: Biden makes Harris the point person on immigration issues amid border surge. The role puts Harris front and center at one of the most politically risky issues for the White House. See, Politico sees the political maneuvering for what it is. It's not that Harris has taken on this role. Biden made Harris the one for this. Now, why is that? It's because kids in cages are still a thing at the border. There is a surge. There is a massive bungling by government in this. And what does the white guy want to do? Put the colored woman out front. Yeah. No, and I don't know if it's appropriate for me to make this like about race, but I can't help but see this as the institution of government going, who's our best front person on this? If we have Biden tackle this directly, it's old white dude. If it's Kamala Harris, who we've used for this effect in the past, right? She was the leading top cop, California's drug war, putting minorities in jail, and she got away with it then. So I'm pretty sure that they could use Kamala Harris to get away with whatever they want to in terms of immigration policy. Now, why is this such a tricky issue? Well, one headline we see today, Daily Mail, exclusive. They have doctors and chefs. They're living better than us. Angry Texas residents tell how the Biden administration is housing over 500 migrant youths at an all-inclusive $33 million man camp just feet away from their homes. About 500 migrant youths are being housed at a man camp in Midland, Texas. It was constructed in 2012 to temporarily house workers in the oil industry. Sean Crabtree, 42, lives across the street from the federal government's newest unaccompanied minor immigration detention facility and is clearly disgruntled. As he said, quote, "I'm worried about some of them escaping and coming to my house and holding my family hostage until they get what they want or taking a vehicle. We are scared." Yeah, be very, very afraid. See, this is an issue that is being managed as, something to keep the government in charge of the border and in charge of freedom of movement. But that's not why we're going to call this the President Harris segment today. And I don't know, there's probably a better term. But I have to wonder, looking at this next story, Kamala Harris to hold discussion with Bill Clinton on empowering women and girls, igniting criticism. Now, of course, this is coming from FoxNews.com. The subtitle, "Is this a joke?" asked Juanita Broderick. Vice President Kamala Harris will hold a joint discussion on empowering women and girls with former President Bill Clinton, who has been accused of sexual misconduct by multiple women. That's the lead sentence in the story. And right away you go, well, wait a second. There's going to be a joint discussion on empowering women and girls. And the point is to empower women and girls. Why is Bill Clinton on this stage? Does he have some incredible record, or is it just former? And this almost seems just like a bald-faced attempt to revive Clinton's image, or to enhance, to sort of make sure that Clinton is still welcome in the club of the elite, with Hillary losing, with the Epstein Ghislaine Maxwell scandal. What? But why? Like, is Bill going to be running for president again? I don't know, but I not necessarily legal, right? But is not that ever stopped these people. But is Hillary going to be running for president again? And they're trying to get Bill's image revived by putting him next to Kamala Harris. That's like, let's have a colored woman sit next to Bill Clinton. We'll have the colored woman vice president. And I don't mean to, like, I'm not referring to her as the colored woman. I'm saying this is how they think of her in using her in this. Let's have the colored woman be our point person for keeping colored people out of our country on the southern border. Let's have the colored woman be the one as our point person for reviving Bill Clinton. And there's got to be some other narrative behind this. I don't particularly care to get into it too much, but conspiracy theorists are going to have a field day getting into this a little deeper and seeing, trying to tease out what's really going on behind the scenes here, because obviously this is one of those times where at least it's obvious it's not what it seems. New York Daily News: New York lawmakers reach deal on adult use. On adult. Why am I getting, like, on today, when I'm all tripped up on other stupid shit, I get headlines that are missing words. Like, and this is not low. This is just badly written headlines. New York lawmakers reach deal on adult use recreational cannabis. Adult use recreational cannabis. That's all right. That's the way you're supposed to read this. New York lawmakers say it's finally time to legalize marijuana in the Empire State. Just a little bit of good news to share. Legislators reached a deal with Governor Cuomo's office Wednesday on a plan to license dispensaries, opening the door for home delivery options and even allowing enthusiasts to grow their own limited number of pot plants. Under the agreement, cannabis use will be legal for adults over 21. But if you're 18, you can join the military. You just can't smoke pot. All right, let's get Stephen back on stage here. We want to do a couple blocks with him first on guns. Although we have two gun stories, and then we have the video of Biden calling for assault weapons ban in the wake of the Colorado shooting, because this was the thing. So, well, Stephen, I want to for at least first introduce the first two stories here.
Okay.
Washington Times: Americans have no right to carry guns in public. Ninth Circuit Court rules. Yeah.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. What?
They can go fuck themselves.
Yeah. Well, this is a federal appeals court ruled Wednesday there's no right to carry a gun in public. The Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in a 7-4 ruling, rejected a challenge to Hawaii's requirement that residents must pass an application to have weapons outside the home. Hawaii's law requires residents to show an urgency or need to carry a firearm. The applicant must have good character, and he or she must be engaged in the protection of life and property. And those all sound really good until you point out it's government deciding who qualifies. Second story here.
What is good character? What is the government definition of good character?
Bill Clinton.
So, like, here's my question, right? Is like, I don't feel.
I'm not joking, Stephen.
Well, no,
Bill Clinton
like
has to be included in the government's definition of good character because for all the sexual assault accusations, for the cheating on his wife with Monica Lewinsky in the White House that he admitted to, and I'm all for being Pauly every which way you want, but not dishonesty. And that was some fucking dishonesty in front of the entire country. And for all the other shit policy and everything else that Bill Clinton is guilty of, that is a citizen of good character.
Time out. First of all, we don't know what's going to happen in this women's empowerment thing. She may lock him in a cage and go, when they attack you, kick them in the nuts. You don't know what's going to happen. So just stop.
All right, Stephen, if you want to watch that propaganda performance piece and tell me if there's a part where Kamala does anything mean whatsoever to Bill Clinton,
here's
I
my
would
question to
appreciate
you,
that, but
Mr. Ethical. If you were married to Hillary Clinton, would you fuck her? Because I wouldn't.
Well, I assume that
that's why God. That's
some other kind of deal.
Guys don't want to fuck their wives.
Yeah, I don't think any of this applies to the Clintons. The Clintons are special.
She married him for the power, not the penis. The entire world knows that. You just
right. No, I mean, I think, and this is sort of, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You probably are.
But sort of the unspoken mythology of the Clintons' marriage that they married for to work together in politics. And part of the deal with Hillary was that she'll put up with him cheating on her.
So I'm pretty sure they were married by the devil.
No, but seriously, is that a pretty common understanding among people who look at the Clintons and go, yeah, it's probably something like that.
I know a lot of people on all sides, Libertarian, Republican, Democrat, don't give a fuckers. They all pretty much, every group has somebody in their group that feels that way. Like, the only reason that her last name is Clinton is because it carries a good bit of weight.
Okay, so we're supposed to be talking about guns. Back to the story here. From BusinessInsider.com, YouTube says it will not remove a 3-hour live stream of the Colorado grocery store shooting.
Okay.
What does that tell you, Stephen?
So let's back up for a second. Who is YouTube? They're a private corporation, and over the last 15 years, they've gone. Well, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. You're probably, you got some truth to you. Over the last 15 years, when I first got introduced to YouTube in high school, like, there were titties. Like, there was, like, rather hardcore pornography. When I was in high school, I watched pornography on YouTube. And now you can, like, try on lingerie, I think, but you can't fire guns. Like, some of the big gun channels are being demonetized, and they're in the process of being removed in completely. James Yeager had his account removed for 6 months. Tactical Encounters had their account removed. So I find it kind of odd that they're super anti-gun, but they're gonna let you see the bad side of things. And
that's why
that I noticed something with the last 2 mass shootings, and I'm not gonna. The one in Atlanta, most of the people weren't Asian. Stop calling it a fucking hate crime. He probably went in for a happy ending and didn't get one. Honestly, that's a theory that is being thrown around right now. I tend to believe it. But both of the guys in their intake picture, this is important, if you've never been to jail, here's what happens. They bring you into the jail. You sit in a box, and in the process of the next couple of hours, they're going to fingerprint you. They're going to take your mug shot. They're going to do all this stuff. And then they're going to take you to medical to make sure that you're ready to go into POP. And when you're at POP, after you've gotten your fingerprints and your picture taken, you go to medical, and before you go to POP, they ask you all these questions about suicide, mental health, family mental health, drug use. And some jails have a detox wing. Some, they all have got different things, but every jail that gets federal funding, which is every jail, has suicide requirements. So the last two shooters were wearing what's called a turtle suit, which is an anti-suicide vest. It's something they give you because they have to clothe you, but you can't hang yourself with it like you could a jumpsuit.
Right.
Why the fuck, was their intake picture taken in a suicide suit? Why not a jumpsuit? I've been to jail a bunch because I saw Adam's shit was holding my beer. Last summer I got arrested 17 times. I went to 17 protests. I got arrested 17 times. All of those, my intake picture was with a t-shirt that I was wearing.
Right. Well, I think you're picking apart the wrong thing here, Stephen. And any kind of something that's high profile and brings in massive resources and involves multiple deaths, there are going to be variations in procedure like that. But I want to get to the bigger point of YouTube not removing this. They want you. This is one of those situations where I don't know if this is the first incident ever. I bet it's not, where you have bystander video that is extremely graphic. And in this case, the video has been viewed. It's a 3-hour video that is very graphic. Been viewed by YouTube 735,000 times. As Jim has it on screen here, YouTube has decided to put an age filter on this, which allows you to proceed. And this is the only legitimate form of content moderation for any social media website, is to put warnings on things. So that nothing is thrust on you that based on your preferential settings. You could say, and you should be able to go into YouTube and say across the board, I don't want any warnings. I want to see all the graphic shit. It should be you go find that. That's not the default. The default setting is restrictive, right? The default setting is we put a screen over all potentially sensitive content. And that's what is it sensitive? That's determined by the audience, and it's not a big deal. It barely, you can ignore. You can put in your settings to ignore all such warnings. You can say only give me. I don't want to see sexual stuff. You can say I only don't want to see violent stuff. You can say I want to have to click through everything or nothing, right? And so in this case, they're doing the right thing. The question is, why just now? Why not ever before? And it's because they are pro-gun control. They want you to see the bad side of guns. They would never show a video, allow a shooting to be shown of someone using a firearm appropriately in a defensive way. That would get censored off of YouTube. And they're using the excuse that it's violent content that is intended to shock or disgust is not allowed, but violent content with sufficient news or documentary context is allowable. And what's interesting, I've had some direct experience with this, Stephen, as you might know. My video called "The Restraint of Muslims" went viral very briefly before it was taken down. We had to put it on, what was the other video hosting site? I think not Vimeo, LiveLeak. We put it on LiveLeak. This was 10 years ago. But it included a clip of the Jordanian pilot being burned alive by ISIS, allegedly. And for that, it got censored, but then it got put back up. So apparently they were able to review this, but there's so much content, it's impossible. And so that they tilted in the way of manipulating things to serve their political agenda. No surprise that it's any different here. And so this leads us to the last link in the gun control block. If Jim has this pulled up, you want to play the 2.5 minutes of Joe Biden here?
So, on that 2.5 minutes, if you'll stop it at the 50-second mark, or stop it at the minute mark and stop it at the minute and 30 mark, I want to point some stuff out. We can't hear it, Jim.
Yeah, he's got to take it down, push it back, put it back.
Just give me a sec. Yeah.
But no, it's weird. So, and this happened a little bit. I was on a show with a gentleman.
This is the one thing I do know enough to say on in terms of what's happened there. While we're still waiting for more information regarding the shooter, his motive, the weapons he used, the guns, the magazines, the weapons, the modifications that apparently have taken place to those weapons that are involved here, I don't need to wait another minute, let alone an hour, to take common sense steps that will save the lives in the future and to urge my colleagues in the House and Senate to act. We can ban assault weapons and high capacity magazines in this country once again. I got that done when I was a senator. It passed. It was law for the longest time. And it brought down these mass killings. We should do it again. We can close the loopholes in our background check system, including the Charleston loophole. That's one of the best tools we have right now.
All right. So he's talked about a few things. He talks about when he was a senator, all those fucking many moons ago, because he hung out with Father Time in high school. But the senator stuff he's talking about is something called the 1994 Gun Crime Bill, which here's what it did. It said, oh, you don't work for the government? You're not allowed the really effective stuff. It did not make possession illegal, but it made purchasing illegal. And what that did that nobody wants to talk about is it put tens of thousands of sole proprietor gun company, or not gun companies, but gun stores and small manufacturers out of business overnight.
So I pulled up this story in response to this from factcheck.org. Did the 1994 assault weapons ban work? And basically it had negligible impact one way or another by all honest assessments.
So what it did,
and both sides are dishonestly misrepresenting that.
It made the big gun manufacturers even bigger. And it made it harder to get into the gun game as a business. So here's what the Charleston loophole is, and here's why they call it the Charleston loophole. There was a shooting at a church. I'm pretty sure everyone knows about it. A white kid walked into a predominantly black church. The reason they call it a Charleston loophole is because it was made famous after the shooting. There's two things that are to be said about this. When you fill out a form, you fill the form out. Nobody can really question the form unless they know you. So he had a drug charge. So legally speaking, he should have said, I use drugs. Instead of checking yes, he should have, or instead of checking no, he should have checked yes. He lied. People fucking lied. So they want it to be that the store owner has to ask you the questions so that the store owner can be liable if you get a gun when you're not supposed to have a gun. The second thing that happened is he was arrested on a misdemeanor charge. The state of South Carolina did not report the charge to the FBI immediately after they arrested him because what's that? Oh, I lost the name of the thing. They have to wait till you're convicted. They have to. You're innocent until proven guilty.
It's not like Joe Biden. What's the name of the thing? The innocent until. Hey, Steven, we're about at time, man. We got to wrap this up and get to your comment question.
What they want to do is they want to make it so that they can shut a store down if they sell somebody a weapon. Also, right now, every year, a state is required to give the FBI charges so they have an up-to-date file. What they want to do is they want to make it so that every 30 seconds a state is required to update their system, not on charges that go through, but on charges you're fingerprinted on. So if you get arrested for fighting somebody and then you beat the charge because you were defending yourself, you're now no longer allowed to own a firearm because you've self-defended yourself with your hands before. So the very moment you get arrested, whether or not you're innocent, whether or not you're guilty, you just lose your rights to own a firearm. I would say that doesn't matter because most guns I buy off from a private individual. And when I bought, I think it was this pistol. The dude, I walk up, I go, "Hey, are you the guy with the guns?" He goes, "Yeah." And he said, "I see you, Jim. I promise." He said, "Yeah. Do you do meth?" And he said, "I said no." And he goes, "Cool, you can have a gun." And I bought a gun. They want to make that illegal too. So,
well, Stephen, what is your gun's new name? Do you have a winner for your comment contest?
Oh yes, I have to see who made the comment, but this is now my dick.
All right, congratulations on waving your dick around.
And then this is the best comment for this is, "I look like a deranged tourist that's about to shoot up a supermarket."
All right, co-host, ladies and gentlemen, stupid shit people say on the internet, Stephen McClure, executive director of Homefront Battle Buddies. Thank you for joining us today. Let's get executive producer Jim up on screen here to take us home with the promos for the day. What do you got, Jim?
Promo it up. All right. So we're not playing the rest of that video because we all understand what's happening. They're trying to take our guns. No shit. They've been doing it for a while. This is just another part of it. So check out the Producers Club. Check out the public channel. Lost it for a sec. The public Telegram chat. Download Telegram. Check out t.me/Adam versus the man. Anybody, if you're watching this right now, you don't have to do a thing, but download Telegram and join the chat. It's absolutely free. There's no strings attached. You can just join the chat, check it out. You're free to come and go as you want. It's like a public forum for the show. If you want to join the more personalized private Telegram chat that we run, then you got to go to the website that you see at the bottom of the screen, adamversustheman.com, and then click on the Patreon button to check out the different ways you can support the show. You could just give us $1 or $5 a month, but if you give us 10 a month, that gets you access into the Producers Club that I mentioned, the private chat. There's almost 40 people in it. It's a pretty good time. After that, click the back button on your browser and go back to the website that has everything. Click on Cigar Federation. That's going to bring you to the affiliate program. They have all kinds of exotically flavored cigars like the one Steven, co-host Steven, was smoking today on air. He was personally attesting to how great they are. You can use promo code Adam10 to get 10% off of everything there. Go back to the website, adamversustheman.com, and check out the store CJ's put together. You can get Adam versus the Man logo or the Freedom logo on pretty much everything you can think of. If we don't have something that you can think of, then email producer at the Freedom line and give us an idea, and we'll try to get that made. Also, Producers Club members and better patrons get 15% off and free shipping on anything they buy at the store here. So that's awesome. Lastly, please, if you're on Instagram, which I know so many of you are, just type in the search bar at the Garden of Freedom. This is going to come up. There's tons and tons and tons of great pictures and videos of everything that's been going on over like the last year up there in Gardenia. You can see all the different Four Seasons. You can see great time lapses like this one of the sunsets. They got them all kinds. He's got firewood stacked up high right there. That's impressive right there. Both sides. Good job on that. Nice fire. Check that out.
It's a lot of firewood. All right, the good news in history. Today is the bicentennial anniversary of the Greek uprising celebrated by Greeks around the world as Independence Day, when they won independence from the Ottoman Empire. The public holiday includes parades throughout the country with people wearing traditional Greek clothing and military flyovers in Athens. On this day in 1807, the British Parliament abolished the slave trade. On this day in 1896, the modern Olympics began in Athens, Greece. On this day in 1943, 90% of all Dutch physicians went on strike against Nazi registration. On this day in 1965, while still in his 20s, MLK Jr. led 25,000 to the state capitol in Montgomery, Alabama. On this day in 1969, John and Yoko staged the first bed-in for peace in Amsterdam. On this day in 1995, WikiWeb, the world's first wiki, was made public by Ward Cunningham in Portland, Oregon. On this day in 2014, the Dunkin' Donuts Baskin Robbins Community Foundation gave $1 million to put food in backpacks for poor children to take home from school throughout America. And on this day, 12 years ago, 13 Palestinian girls and boys from a West Bank refugee camp traveled with their musical director to Israel to perform for elderly Holocaust survivors. And 77 years ago today, a Royal Air Force sergeant survived a jump from 18,000 feet without a parachute. The 21-year-old World War II gunner decided when his Lancaster bomber was on fire, it was better to jump than burn. His fall was broken by pine trees and soft snow, and he suffered only a sprained leg. Happy birthday. Happy to Sir Elton John, who turned 74 years old today, and 56th birthday to Sarah Jessica. I shouldn't be covering celebrity birthdays. That's it for our show. Thanks for tuning in. Peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.